Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we're going to be sitting down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing. We have The Hustler, directed by Robert Rosen, Blowout by Brian De Palma, The Color of Money, directed by Martin Scorsese, and finally, Origin, directed by Ava DuVernay. It is going to be a great billiards-filled show, folks, so stay tuned and enjoy. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay on this side of the table. How was your week of movies?
Well, it was really a wonderful week thanks to your idea of
Not
this
my
film.
idea. I was just gabbing. I was gabbing at the end of the episode last week. That's all that was.
I gotta say, I really love this because it was so much what the podcast is about too. Like just finding a little thing that you're looking into.
Yes.
You find
Yeah.
maybe some connective tissue between the movies, and you watched them. And I mean, talk about quote unquote a double header. I mean, this is the first official double header. I mean,
so if you're not familiar with so you have The Hustler and then The Color of Money, which is Go ahead.
They share the writer. Both come from a novel.
Yeah.
They share the character of possibly what I'm confidently going to be calling one of the best characters in all-time cinema, Fast Eddie Felsen.
Felsen.
I love Fast Eddie so much.
And Minnesota Fats. Some great names.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it was just like, it was so perfect to watch these films together. So hats off to you, Tom. I think this is a great idea.
Well, this just came about because I had mentioned I was really into Paul Newman and going through the Paul Newman list.
Right.
Then I was saying, I'll probably do The Color of Money, which you pointed out was the successor.
Yep.
The spiritual successor, if you will.
Sure. Which is now like just a straight up sequel. Now understanding it a lot more, you know.
And so I had not watched The Color of Money then, and then I watched it.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later I watched it again with Andrea.
Yep.
Then I watched half of it again. So that doesn't mean, it's an 85%.
Right.
Because your rule is if I watch it twice, that's when it me. I watched what was the movie? I watched Major League 2.5 times and only gave it 2 shoes. So
right.
Rules a little bit different over here.
Rules are skewed a bit.
Really happy. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't twist your arm.
Yeah, because I've always been slightly aware of this. Also, similar to you, Newman is a name that I, of course, recognize, but don't really know where he made his bones. I mean, this is the character for him.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
I mean, talk about what a character and what a performance, too. He's just cool as ice in both of these films.
It's Cool Hand Luke, Fast Eddie Felsen.
Yeah, for real. And folks, let me just say that and take a moment to encourage sending in your own lists and pairings. There's no guarantee we'll get to them all, or there's no guarantee it'll spark my kind of my curiosity in the same way. But I would say this was the best part of watching this week because I really did feel like it was a dynamite idea. So, folks at home, if you want to write in, you want to donate in, whatever you want to feel, comment on the socials, pairings, your own doubleheader. I'd be happy to take a look because this was really, again, the best part of the week.
It adds another, and it's like, this is fun. Movies are fun.
Yeah.
And as much as like this is maybe a full-on part-time job, movies are fun, and it's fun to step away from your phones or the news in real life and just like enjoy movies. And these back-to-back, it's such a joy to have these.
Absolutely.
It was very cool to watch.
Yeah.
One note I will say, it's very helpful, too, to donate with your ideas. If you but also, I think maybe the one thing that Vin also gets from people is just like, you gotta watch this. You gotta watch this.
Sure.
To the point where I don't do that with Vin. One thing I know with Vin Like this, I didn't even tell him to do The Hustler and Color Money. I was just saying this was my journey.
Right.
And then he went for
You
it.
reverse psychology me into
ways.
wanting to do it. Yeah.
But absolutely, suggestions and any type of engagement is great, for sure.
Yeah.
And
now, before cracking into these two,
Yeah.
I was trying to remember, and clearly it must be the case from what you said, rewatching The Color of Money multiple times. Which one of these two did you prefer? Because you said one of them is like your new favorite sports movie.
Oh, you don't remember?
No.
Oh, we'll just get it. I'm not going to tell you that right away. I mean, come on.
Okay, fair enough.
By the way, do you think chess is a sport?
Walter Tevin, the guy that wrote this, he wrote The Queen's Gambit. So I think this
How
guy
old is him? How old is he?
He has like I think 7 books. How old is him? How old is this man?
I mean, The Hustler's 1961.
Yeah.
For God's sakes.
I think he might have died semi-tragically or died young, but I didn't do too much of a deep dive into it. More so just like, all right, where is Fast Eddie coming from? Right. And it's like, oh, it's a book. Okay. So maybe, maybe sports writer special.
I think, because I think chess is a game.
Yeah.
I think I said the pool movie to somebody, and they thought it it being like a great sports movie, one of my favorite sports movie, and someone just not getting it and thinking I was a ridiculous one. It's like, what are you talking about? This is a pool of sports.
Oh, especially Color of Money, the more official spin to it. Yeah.
Okay, and we also our second movie. Honestly, it was getting a little late last night, and I was going to start Blowout because I just almost wouldn't want to see where De Palma goes.
Right.
After the last one, like
turns out not too far from
and I learned it was a Philly movie as well.
Oh yeah.
But it was a little bit late, so I was like, well, it's gonna be snoozing during it anyway. So I didn't get to that one, but obviously I watched the 2 of the 4, and I'm glad we only did 4 this week.
Yeah.
Couldn't get your hands on the other new release. So it's just
folks, it was going to be All of Us Strangers, which looked to be good, but I had scheduling conflicts. I already had to drive a good distance for Origin, and I couldn't get it done. And then Miller's Girl was maybe on the chopping block with the chick from Wednesday. I forget her name. And
it was on the chopping block.
Right? Yeah,
she got chopped.
It got chopped. Right. These are actually on the chopping block. Yeah, I just saw like it getting some real bad reviews, and I was just like, oh, is this like a sexy student teacher thing? And I was just like, all right,
right.
Yeah.
Dime a dozen, really, you know. Okay, folks, let's just jump into it right away. We're going to go back, take a step back to 1961. A director I don't think we're familiar with, and we have not dealt with at all in the daily ratings. Robert Rosen.
No.
But this is The Hustler. Paul Newman starring. I think he's around 30, 31 years old when he's filming this.
Wow.
So not quite as young as Tom Cruise in The Color of Money, but still he's on his way up still. You know, this is almost like the start of his true celebrity stardom.
Yeah.
I feel like that this is like brings him into the 60s. As he's like worked his way up through the 50s a little bit.
Oh, sure.
But anyway, The Hustler, 1961. Let's get into it right away. Vin, how did you like it?
Well, I adored this film. I feel like The Hustler, beyond kind of my understanding and the rumor mill, if you will, that this was a very critically acclaimed film. I don't know. This movie captured everything I want out of when I say the rule of cool, everything I want when I say out of like a really compelling character that I really want to follow. And I haven't seen a lot of Newman either, but undoubtedly one of his most iconic roles. I think the only thing we've covered on the podcast was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Correct. Yep.
I will go on to say a few times, and I've already said it, but the character of Fast Eddie is an all-time great here, and in large part for how Newman embodies the slick setting around him. Robert Rosen is doing some heavy lifting as well here, a classic director that honestly would love to spend more time with. 1949's All the King's Men being one of those big old movies that you just see on a dozen lists. So
yeah.
We'll give some love to Rosen eventually. He's now on one of my lists.
Co-wrote this as well.
Yes. But above everyone else, I want to give huge praise to writer Walter Tevis. I mean, the man is the author to both of these movies. The Man Who Fell to Earth, which was actually covered on the podcast, an earlier podcast ep, and even the semi-recently adapted Queen's Gambit, like we mentioned. Folks, when I tell you there is exactly zero fat on this, I mean it. I mean, this is a sharp movie. You know, I can't begin to tell you how fine-tuned this is, even even the moments where we dip into a romance, even when we dip into more of a kind of the character of Fast Eddie and how he's dealing with the pressure, every ounce of this film is dedicated to outlining the world of gambling, and especially in that first act, it is seriously about shooting pool. Talk about leading with your strength, too. That first act between Fast Eddie and Minnesota Fats, which we'll get into in a moment. I mean, it's leading with its best punch. I feel like it's a dynamite way to start it, to build an antagonist, to build a goal. You can even
say the first shot, the first scene of Paul Newman, and I forget his counterpart at that point. When they go into when they're all on the road, going through their bars and hustling, they're just setting the tone. They're letting you know in about 5 minutes who these guys are, what the deal is, and their intentions and goals,
and how the hustle is layered as well. I mean, it honestly took me about halfway through the film. I was like, doesn't he have a sales convention to get to? And because they throw it out there as part of the hustle, he's got somewhere to be. But yeah, it is all for the action, if you will.
Yeah, I think right away. I think we're gonna. There might be one thing that we're going to disagree on throughout this film here. I was surprised to hear you say how tight you thought it was, how good the script was. Not that I didn't think the writing was good. I felt that it to be too long.
Really?
And this is,
Okay.
In fact, when I watched it and saw that it was 2 hours and 15 minutes and then got through it, I not only thought it was too long and it could have been trimmed up about a bit, I thought this was going to be the big weight on it for you.
Oh, really? Really?
So good to hear. Good to hear that you did not think so.
Like I said, well, the middle act, when we get involved with the romance, is where I feel like, if anywhere, it drags. But honestly, I was in love, infatuated with the first and third act.
You love being in the pool hall.
Yeah. Anything around the pool, anything around the world of gambling, and very especially the shady characters, I was like all about.
Okay. So, wow. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, like, it's 2 hours and 15. I was thinking this could easily be 2 hours. And not that it wouldn't, like, let's take this scenes out. I just thought it maybe could have been quickened up a little bit here or there. But it wasn't a big contention, but it was there a little bit for me.
I definitely feel you, though, because, and again, I feel the same because the romance gets a little melodramatic and is just like, all right,
Right.
I didn't think it was definitely important to tell what this world does to the characters. That's where it could be trimmed a little bit. Really, it's just that start. That's just, we get into of who our character is, how he operates, and then we just introduce what his goals are, and that that's Fats Minnesota. I'm curious on your thoughts with this. I would say I would almost compare this to 2014's Whiplash, where it's a story of obsession, of how there can only be one winner, of how the loser blurs into a type of addiction to crawl towards the top. I think these themes are further amplified by the gambling and the crime in the story. While the sequel has a more official spin to its tone, the setting of this story is filled with Fox-like characters that are just all out for each other, and that's what I liked. I liked the evil spin to this. The underworld spin.
Right, the world of just not good people. High-quality players, high-quality hustlers, none of them really good.
You're right.
All morally gray, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. I wasn't thinking about Whiplash at that much. I can see how you got there. This movie, to me, felt like a 1940s movie, a 1950s movie, almost, and it really felt like I was stepping back in time. I wasn't thinking about much of anything modern, in fact, to compare with and stuff. I do kind of like the Whiplash thing because the movie is simple. It does have a basic core to it and runs off that core.
Right. It's about someone doing something real good and getting obsessed with it.
Right. Yeah.
As the core structure there. But there's a lot of praise, but we should maybe give some rails to this. The Hustler is about Fast Eddie Felton, like I said, one of the sharpest 9-ball players to walk onto the scene. Hardly anyone can stand up to his skill, but the trick is not letting anyone in on that secret. Fast Eddie makes his living on high-stake games driven up by the hustle. But as one of the best, he craves beating the best. That title belongs to, get ready for the best fucking name ever, folks, Minnesota Fats. Played by the wonderful Jackie Gleason, coming off of Honeymooners fame. And, I mean, I don't know. I feel like this is like such a stellar casting. I mean, I'm not like a huge Jackie Gleason fan, but like seeing him in this role and seeing him without like the campiness of his normal comedy of what I know it to be.
Yeah.
Man, awesome casting. Awesome casting.
He was phenomenal, and the more, not that I did like heavy research on it, but when I was looking up the trailer on YouTube for Color of Money, of course, all this other Color of Money stuff comes down.
Sure.
And it prompted Joe Rogan clip because he was huge in the pool and like competition pool
really?
player.
Okay.
And he had, I guess, they were talking about Color of Money and The Hustler, and he said Jackie Gleason was a straight up very good pool player.
Really?
And kind of came up
that's
and
awesome.
hit pool halls a lot when he was in clubs, or because he did a lot of comedy, like stand up and stuff too. Apparently, actually, like a very good pool player in real life.
Inspired casting. Then.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
But you're so, the way his jacket, the way he carries himself.
Yeah, he's in the middle of the game. He's washing up.
Yeah.
It's so great. He's so great. To get to him, though, Eddie must dive deeper and deeper into the underworld of billiards gambling, where there's always action and unwanted eyes on his game. I would say to balance some of the praise here, when eventually we do get that romance thrown in the mix, it mostly serves to give us time out of the pool hall. I was fine with it. I would have loved if this never left the pool hall. I know that's crazy, but I really do think it felt like a detour from what was the best part of the first 40 minutes of this. Am I crazy to want to cut this romance entirely, though? What are your thoughts?
No, so I kind of have I'll just kind of read out my note
Sure.
here that I have that kind of connects with that a little bit. Because I made a comment, or made a note here of some sports movies, and a lot of them actually, skip around. We lose focus on the actual game itself. We focus on other aspects of the characters, or like the relationships of the characters. Most prominently, this was a problem with like our baseball movies, where you
Yes.
just want to be on the field, field.
Give me the team. Give me the sport.
So I said that this film is about hustling and pool hustling, and this movie is hustling and pool hustling. Playing billiards takes up a huge amount of the minutes on the screen, but even when we're out of the pool hall and we're dealing with the other stuff or the relationship, the art or the craft of the hustle is actually always present and always playing in the back of your mind.
Sure.
So I think a big concept of the film and the hustler is still always there.
Right.
I admit, this is when the movie drags the most, but never loses the core thing where everything is a hustle in the end a little bit. And it plays with that, and the relationship is played with that.
Sure. And I guess we got to see Eddie at his lows, and that this kind of, falls into that. But if anything, because it's such a strong character, I just wanted more time when he was just killing it on the table.
It's so electric. I never felt like this movie like flew. I always felt it to be a slower movie. But it just... when you're in the pool hall, your eyes are glued.
And every character, no less Jackie Gleason, no less George C. Scott, which we'll get to in a moment here.
Whew, I don't want to talk about George C. Scott for 4 months. 4 months I've been wanting to talk to George C. Scott with you.
What a performance!
Oh, man.
And this is before Patton. I mean, like this is.
I've got thoughts.
George C. Scott is also another one of those actors like Newman, where it's like, I guess I've heard of him. I never really watched him,
Yeah.
But real quick, just back to the romance though. Before we just absolutely.
You got me talking here. I go on a tangent.
I know.
Keep a leash on me, Vin.
It's a good performance from the actor Piper Lauprey, I believe. But I guess I was just annoyed by her character, and again, in just a very honest way. It may not be the most highbrow critique. It tore me away from what I thought was working like 10 out of 10 excellent in this film.
I think kind of what it comes down to is you get a little frustration with her a little bit, and I just think we are dealing with characters of extreme performance and very and just extremely competent characters. And not that she's like a complete idiot. She is not, she's the opposite side of that pinpointed, strong-headed billiards player.
Yes.
She is the antithesis to that a little bit for Paul Newman. So naturally,
she also doesn't know the world of gambling either.
Right. Oh, definitely. So I think it's taking away from that. When the movie is so much about this one thing, she's very purposely supposed to be the opposite of that thing a little bit.
Yeah.
Which also feels like it pulls away from it.
Absolutely. In ways, this could have been a lot worse. Let me say that much. This, I feel like, instead of it just being the second act, could have been the whole movie that we are first introduced to the gambling through her eyes as newbies. We are, it's layered differently. This avoids that. So I still think there's there's plenty of praise here. It's just that again, there was this 10 out of 10 excellent vibe I was getting for the first 40 minutes of this, and then I was just like, oh, okay, I guess he has to have a romantic interest,
Right.
So I really do think all other performances are stellar, though. Newman himself, he is cool as fucking ice in this. I mean, folks, if you're like me and had no clue who Newman was besides some salad dressings, I mean, this is the movie to watch. This is his character. I could not see anyone else fill this character. I feel like that's very apparent from Color of Money that he kind of just like re-hijacks the story.
Yeah, I think that's Paul Newman too. I mean he is a true celebrity.
Yeah.
It comes off screen. He oozes with it.
Yep.
I mean, he did come out with a film called Cool Hand Luke. So, very much to that, it's like he is that guy. Who else did you put in there?
Yeah.
I don't think he can be replaced with Robert Redford.
I don't think,
They play nice together.
Sure.
In The Sting and in Butch Cassidy.
Right.
But Paul Newman is his own thing.
He really is.
The only thing, like modern thing I was thinking about watching this movie was Quentin Tarantino saying how he thinks one of the last sterling movie stars that we have left is Brad Pitt.
Oh, okay.
Brad Pitt has a little bit of that cool, awesome, women want to be with him, men want to be him type of vibe.
Sure.
It's definitely a lost thing.
Yeah.
Where back then, I mean, Newman had it in spades.
He really did, and I guess I'm experiencing that like almost like Hollywood glamour. You know, I mean, I haven't
You
really
feel
been
it.
I've been like wooed. But I will have plenty to say as well when we get to Color of Money in just a moment, folks. Is somehow he even becomes cooler.
I know.
Somehow this dude is the coolest guy on the planet. It's unreal.
By the way, dibs. I already called. In fact, Andrea called it out. But I'm calling dibs on the podcast. I get to be him for Halloween. in Color of Money.
Oh,
and
hell
we'll talk
yeah.
one particular scene.
The sunglasses?
Yeah, and Alma Balabushka with me.
Yes, that's killer. Oh man, Jackie Gleason, like we said, coming off of the Honeymooners fame. If you don't know what that show is, I mean, it's the Straight to the Moon, shit like that. Is that a good description? I don't know.
I don't know. That's nope.
Well, I was shocked by a quick side tangent. Honeymooners, pretty iconic, right? When you think of like
very,
yeah, starting sitcoms, television culture. Only 39 episodes.
Yeah,
I know.
I know. It was just
39.
like Gilligan's Island, only 3 seasons.
Wow, unreal.
Unreal.
I think with Jackie Gleason, my praise here is, well, it's great that you say that he's an actual pool player, because I feel like he does really have a vibe. When Eddie makes a good shot, he's like slowly like clapping the pool
that's
cue
like the
on the
move.
ground.
Yeah, that's the move.
He's got a confidence that's like, again, I don't see anyone else filling that role. And really, I just love structure-wise, his introduction in Act 1 is just so brilliant to set up an antagonist, set up a goal for Eddie. And like I said, just such little distraction in these first 40 minutes about playing pool. It's just
I know.
electric.
Is he the bad guy, or is he just extremely good at what he does, and he's aware of it? You
right.
know what I mean?
He's almost the heel. He's the counter,
and he gets respect from the audience
Yeah.
because it's exuded. You just feel it.
Absolutely a stellar performance. I wish Gleason was in more.
I know. He really was good in this.
I feel like he could be in so many things.
He started off in stand-up comedy a little bit. Of course, he did the Honeymooners. He does act, and throughout his career, he continued to do comedy. But he also composed a little bit. And did music for films as well. Did music.
Interesting.
Wish he. Maybe we just have to look into a little bit.
Yeah.
The more you look, the more you
I'm
realize.
Sure maybe there's one more little special role that he filled out, because
he crushed it in this.
Yeah, he really did crush it. Last but not least is George C. Scott.
Yeah.
We already said it was before Patton, so I mean, I that's really the only thing I would recognize George C. Scott from. Why don't you take the ball on?
So George C. Scott, I knew the legacy of Patton being a big film,
Sure.
some people's favorite movies, and this years back I had watched it on my own and really liked it. Really liked him of just like this. Like, why don't I know this guy more? And then, like I said, 5 months ago, I watched a YouTube video and someone did a very nice homage to George C. Scott. It's like low key, he's actually one of the better actors or best actors in his generation.
Yeah.
Went through some of his films and stuff he was in, and then for me personally, it was just like, I want to see more of this this guy. I just can't wait to see him. So I watched The Hustler for Paul Newman, and a little bit Paul Newman study for myself. And then when I saw he was in it, I was like, here we go. I said, yes, finally, George C. Scott, George C. Scott. And now I'm finding I want George C. Scott to be in every movie.
Absolutely.
There's a character for him somewhere.
Just every villain, basically.
But at the same, like, he is so. Oh man! I mean, why don't you just spend some time on it?
When I describe. I could be George C. Scott in The Hustler specifically.
That ain't got to be Tom Cruise, so we can walk.
That's so great, Vincent playing Vincent. I think George C. Scott. When I describe this world being enriched by its slick fox-like characters in this underworld of gambling and hustling and billiards, he just encompasses it because he's the bookie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He really is the bad guy when it comes down to the arc for Fast Eddie, where the challenge itself, the mountain he has to climb, is Minnesota Fats.
Right.
And man, he just had a Sweet Smell of Success vibe, whereas it was just like, I'm so gripped by how criminal and how manipulative and how like truly an asshole, like real, evil dude this guy is.
He is such. Where you're enamored with Paul Newman and how awesome he is and stuff.
Right.
You're looking at George C. Scott and you're just like, holy shit, this guy is an incredible actor.
Mm-hmm.
Acting and techniques have changed a lot over the years. Sometimes you watch those old films and people are just like, holy shit, that is an actor. That person deserves respect even for today's standards. And that's George C. Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, watching him on screen, he encapsulates that so well.
Absolutely.
It was kind of it was shocking how good he was and how real he was and visceral at times.
Yeah. It might be even the secret ingredient to why it all works, because
I think so, absolutely.
Not that you forget about Minnesota Fats as kind of his goal to get back to.
He is, but he's like the fourth most important character.
It is.
As far as, Jackie Gleason, Minnesota Fats. George C. Scott is almost second most important.
I would say so.
Yeah.
And how he also is an introduction. I mean, I think I like the character because he's the gateway to more of what I like in the film. Yeah, we go to Kentucky and he knows these weird, billiard freaks almost. They're like all about just playing pool all night long and gambling their money
Had their
away.
own private stuff, their own private bars downstairs. And the old tables.
So I liked him as a bridge into more of the underworld.
Yeah.
And
he's the guy who's connected.
Absolutely.
And it's important to say, like you said, he was a bookie. So basically his role is he holds the money for the pool players. And he will set up tables. He will travel with you. He'll go around the country so you can move around from pool hall to actually hustle people for that money. He'll pay for your food. He'll pay for your room and board. He has the connects, but once when you win, he gets a cut of it. And if you're playing for money, he's the one who's actually holding the money, and he has to approve whether you ought to be playing or not type of deal. So that's kind of his involvement in this underground pool world.
Yeah.
Incredible performance. So.
Absolutely. I mean, walking away, I am very interested in almost everyone involved in this project and to watch more of it, whether it be the director, the writer, Paul Newman, George C. Scott, Jackie,
Gleason,
so much. So, originally watching this, again, it's that middle section that lost me a bit, and I say that just as a heads up for folks at home because I like old movies. And I think, to your comments, Tom, that's where it could be maybe, a bit slower. But I can't tell you, folks, I absolutely adored the start and the end to this movie, to the point of near perfection. Everything around billiards is great, and everything around gambling is even better. Scenes are just so good in this, and I found myself watching it again on 2 separate occasions, going back and watching these pool scenes to the point of buying the film and watching it all the way again.
Really?
I think this was a great pick. Excellent work, Tom. We're going to go ahead and give The Hustler an 86.
Whoa! Big boy alert! Big boy alert! Okay.
Really, really great.
Honestly, I was so sure of myself that you would be not so hot because of the length. I thought you would have been saying, "Man, make this an hour and 45.
Right.
Keep us in the billiards room, whatever." I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
I knew you were gonna like it. I knew you were gonna like it.
It hits that sweet spot for the rule of cool with me.
Wow.
It's just that everyone is cool as ice, and it's compelling to watch. And then as well, in like a Sweet Smell of Success, I love just everyone being so morally messy, so smeared as far as their ethics of what they're willing to get pushed to. And again, in the comparison to Whiplash, how the film is a challenge of that. How far are these people willing to go?
Right. Yeah.
And I feel it came all together. The front and the end of it really near perfection.
Okay, so The Hustler with an 86%.
Yeah.
No two shoes on this one. I'll put my hand up right away. No two shoes, okay? Really like the movie.
Right.
Really like the movie, but I did feel... I mean, my one basic note, which is what I started with, was... it has a look and feel from the 40s and 50s is kind of how I felt. There's no frills, no flash to the film, which makes it boil down completely on the performances to keep you engaged, which, like you just described, they basically do. But for a 1961 slow black and white film at 2 hours and 15 minutes, it's hard not to feel that, in my opinion, it stalled out for me sometimes.
Sure.
And that kind of took it a bit. If it was more snappier, maybe this would have even more of a sweet smell of success, because you said that film can really move.
Yeah.
And moves slick.
I think that's where even held it back a tiny bit from even more of a positive score. I know, as crazy as it is to say, this was really bouncing all over the 80s, though. And honestly, do you think the 86 is too generous for someone that's not used to any type of old movies? Maybe they have a passing interest in billiards or something, and they land on this. Do you think that...
I don't know how to answer that.
Okay.
I think that most people who watch this will come away with it more so the way I come down on it. Which honestly, I don't know. That might be like a daily ratings like in the 70s or something like that. Like low 70s, mid 70s is maybe where I thought you were going to land on it. But it's not like it's not. I don't look at that and I'm not angry at that. You know what I mean? This isn't a situation. This isn't a...
what is he going to pull out?
I was going to say that. I can't even remember. I hate it so much. What's the Del Toro, Bradley Cooper one that Leo was supposed to be in with a carnival freak? I hated that movie. But regardless, I don't know if most people are going to land on 86. But the thing is, this is like revered and loved of old critics, new critics. Like it's a beloved movie, and I feel like there is something to it. This film has something. So I don't know. People our age that go back and watch it, I don't know.
Tough to say. Yeah. But something I was again with this kind of bouncing around the 80s in my mind.
Yeah.
I think I was curious of, realistically, especially coming up in February and covering some, the Fred Astaire movies again. How much is like someone that has never seen a black and white film?
Yeah.
Has never seen anything past like, I don't know, the 80s, not even the 70s.
Yeah.
How do they kind of come into this and see it? So hopefully that's a perfect example of where the podcast gives some perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially for the hustler, tune into that evil underworld. I absolutely love it.
Oh, it'll take you there on a time. Yeah. Just sit back and let it in, basically.
Absolutely.
Okay, Vin, excellent. That is an 86 for The Hustler. Fantastic. We're going to break our rule a little bit. We're not going to go and Blowout came out in 81, but we're going to go ahead and jump into Color Money. You had suggested that before we started, which came out in 86, but it's smart to pair these together.
Yeah.
So this is now 1986. This is literally the second Scorsese movie that we've ever done on the podcast. Because the first one we did was Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
And this, honestly, I knew this film existed, and especially getting into the Newman stuff. I was excited to watch this. I kind of forgot that this is a Scorsese movie.
Yeah, it really does get lost in the shuffle.
Pre-Goodfellas.
Yeah,
we're in a different era.
Right. He's
Raging
coming
Bull.
off of Raging Bull, Color of Money, and then one other one that I didn't even recognize.
I forget when the Last Temptation of Christ.
That's after this. 2 years after this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's 88.
Yeah. Definitely in his not his mega success, but certainly they're calling him, one of the new kids on the block.
After Raging Bull, for sure,
absolutely.
and Taxi.
Absolutely.
But okay, so this is like we just said, Martin Scorsese, 1986. Paul Newman is back. I think filming this now, Paul Newman is 61-ish.
Oh, okay.
It's like it's actually Tom Cruise's current age, which is the difference as far as
really.
Yeah. Paul Newman is aging, booze salesman, and Tom Cruise is jumping off mountains with a parachute. But Tom Cruise, I believe, is in his early 20s. Paul Newman is 61. This is the successor to The Hustler, so it's literally in the same world as The Hustler, 25 years in advance, which is exactly how the movies play out too, 61 to 86. Okay, Vin, let's get into it right away. How did you like Martin Scorsese's The Color of Money?
I liked it a lot. I got to be honest, it was up against a very strong picture. You know what I mean? The Hustler was really hitting for me. But like you said, my original awareness of this was around it being a spiritual successor, continuing the story of Fast Eddie as a supporting character. But after watching this, I would happily call this just a straight-up true sequel,
Yeah.
It's not going to be called The Hustler 2 or something like that, thank God. Not only is this the last novel of Walter Tevis, but even with Tom Cruise smearing over every scene, this story is still very much directly about Fast Eddie. And let me say, Paul Newman is just the goddamn man in this.
It's unbelievable.
If the last movie didn't cement it already, Newman is somehow able to be even cooler in his old age.
I know. And playing up the old age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel he could take
He's slower, he's less wiry, because, his character as well is a little bit, not like tweaky, but, he's trying to get somewhere.
There's 3 scenes where he comes across so youthful and quick with his movements, quick with his language.
Yeah.
Well, I'm almost upset that they age him the way he does. That's why it's like Hollywood in his 80s movies.
Yeah.
It's like, just take the mustache away and get rid of some of the gray hair.
Right.
And I think he could actually... He was okay with showing himself in that way.
Sure.
I don't think a lot of actors would.
Yeah.
They need to stay in a certain lane. They need to stay young. Well, much like
right.
a Tom Cruise.
Right.
Need
The
to stay
obsession
young
with
and be that younger guy.
Yeah.
Again, because he's got a quickness to him in some of these scenes. But him taking this role of this aging guy, kind of incredible.
Yeah.
And still cool.
Oh my God, absolutely.
Won the Oscar for Best Supporting. I'm sorry, Best Actor.
Lead.
Yeah, Best Lead.
Yeah. And I think more than anything, I'm happy that he got it. It's kind of a weak year for the Oscars. This is the 87 Oscars. I saw him win. I was like, was this a pity thing? And after watching, I don't think that's the case.
Oh, come on. He's so good.
But I'm glad he got it for Fast Eddie, because I feel like this is a shared Oscar win for the both. It's for the character that he plays. So, of course, this one of the more exciting elements of this is that Martin Scorsese is directing. And, not to be overcritical, I would maybe put this in Marty's B list, just as it feels like him, but not all the way him. By no means is this a bad movie whatsoever, but I was expecting a lot more coming off of the last film and definitely walking into a Scorsese film. In a lot of ways, I feel like this film surprised me how it felt like a modern revival sequel with heavy nostalgia nods to, peppering the film. Also, this is one of the more notable soundtracks by Robbie Robertson, filled with these smoky, haunting blues that echoes throughout the many pool halls. I feel like just an entirely different tone is being captured 25 years later. Does that work out, 25?
Yeah, 25, exactly.
Yeah. So.
Which I love. And to be honest, with the music and Robbie doing it, and of course we talked about him on the wrap-up year, kind of, the Tom Daly episode. One thing I love, too, it kind of just brought me back to that very opening scene in The Last Waltz where Rick Danko is explaining Nine Ball or something like that, which I love.
So true.
I love that it's Marty now and Robbie working on this film
Maybe
together.
That's the spark of it. Yeah, absolutely. In The Color of Money, Fast Eddie Felsen once again has long hung up his pool cue, making a living out of selling booze with some healthy action on the side. This doesn't last too long, though, as he stumbles across a loud, reckless, but brilliant pool player named Vincent, played by none other than Tom Cruise.
Were you aware that Cruise was in this?
Oh, of course.
Oh, okay.
And how could you not?
I was pretty blind to this film, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I've always seen this poster that just says Newman Cruise.
That's true. I did on the poster, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty iconic.
That's true.
Also, this is the first time Tom Cruise plays a character named Vincent, the second being Michael Mann's Collateral. This is something I track individually as being named Vincent. Eddie sees himself in Vincent naturally. How could he not? And aims to nurture the hustle in his game. The only problem is Vincent doesn't really care about the money and only wants the glory of being the best. This puts the two of them at odds for most of the film until we see kind of a little bit of a role reversal, and that's where I encourage this is really about Fast Eddie still. This is still Newman's show. And then proofs in the pudding, him, winning the best lead actor.
Yeah, see, didn't know that going into it. I thought this was going to be more of Tom Cruise lead.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought,
I'm
okay,
with you.
Paul Newman is now just George C. Scott, and then we're going to see Tom Cruise run with it.
Right, almost to the point that I was expecting Newman to be like the bad guy,
right? Exactly.
In some way.
But seeing how this plays out and seeing actually the lead that Newman takes, I realize I'm so happy it went that direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really happy.
It's more of a fanfare for it, and that's where I say it kind of surprised me how modern this felt as a sequel, like we would see in a sequel revival of many films.
Sure, yeah.
So, let's go ahead and talk about Tom Cruise. Because, oh my dear God, is he so Tom Cruise in this? Like, wow. Believe it or not, I would say in ways he equally saves and ruins the film for me. Story-wise, in the beginning, I didn't really love the dad role Newman played.
Okay.
And that it felt almost like he was kind of forced into it a tiny bit, especially when I just wanted to see more of Fast Eddie on his own.
Yeah.
So that's where I like where the story goes. So often Cruise was the energy in scenes and moving things forward. He was the momentum in scenes of we get introduced to whatever the scene is. They walk into the pool hall. They're trying to establish a hustle. Tom Cruise was something that was like, okay, I don't know what's going to come out of this guy's mouth. I don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes he's doing karate moves.
Okay, one thing
Sometimes
when you told me you were watching these movies, I could not wait. I almost wanted to text you or waiting from a text from you.
Yeah.
5 minutes into this film, and out of nowhere, Tom Cruise is playing Kung Fu with his pool cue. Yes. And I could only imagine you're like, oh my God, here we go.
It really was. And that's where I was like...
I mean, I was laughing out loud.
Right, I think the good news here is that this is very iconic Tom Cruise. If you're a Tom Cruise fan, guess what? You got a great movie to watch. But yeah, that's where it was... that's at least the positive side. On the other hand, he's just in full asshat mode. He's just, he's the most punchable man I've ever seen. Every bar he is in, no less the spin of a hustle possibly getting, discovered. I'm so surprised he does not get his ass kicked in this film.
Well, he almost does.
Right. I needed his ass kicked.
A bloody lip.
Right.
Great scene.
Right. I don't know. It might sound like a backhanded compliment, but I would say casting Cruise is great because it really just feels like him, and I think that does share my love of The Hustler that Newman felt appropriate for like a 1961 pool hall. Cruise feels very appropriate for these rundown bars and pool halls that are past their glory and now are these like blues graveyards almost at times. Yeah, when it comes down to it, I think it's a real toss-up for me recommending this because I think it entirely depends on how much you tolerate Tom Cruise.
Okay.
And Prime Cruise.
I thought it was, okay.
I would say, like I said, this is a true sequel for Eddie, and Newman following up in a substantial way for this character is what's important. Between the mix of nostalgia and Eddie returning to his throne as the best, in a lot of ways, this had me thinking of Top Gun Maverick. Structure-wise, we are given a chance to reacclimate to the character, and eventually we see him rise to fill the legend we know him to be as the audience. The story lays down a new energy to the game, however, less emphasis on crime, most importantly. While the principles of his hustle still work, like I said in the last review, this is a lot more official spin. I feel like both of these films are described as sports dramas, which I agree with both. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the sports side is more emphasized here, especially with a big official tournament being the final destination. Gambling is still there, but not to overpraise Tevin,
the writer.
Not to overpraise Tevis, but when it comes to the naming of these stories, I think it's very important, that kind of separation, though. It's really not about the hustle anymore.
Okay. It plays a really strong part, though.
It does.
It's there. It is omnipresent.
Right. I just feel like it really comes down to just more official billiards.
Yeah. Okay.
The sport has been cleaned up. from 61.
Right,
You
yeah.
know? Even though gambling is part of it, just how gambling probably is more prevalent than ever, you know, in real sports. I like we talked about, Newman wins the Oscar for this, and like I said, I feel like I don't know, the warm and fuzzy feeling I get from that type of story is that Fast Eddie is recognized as really a great character,
Yeah.
and Newman's
Yeah.
performance is recognized by such a stellar performance. So
It really is, yeah.
yeah. Let's talk about Marty a little bit. You know, I think there's some real slick shots here. And the visuals play into presenting billiards in a more exciting way. What did you think, actually?
So I thought, again, one main disagreement I think we'll have about this
Mm-hmm.
is I would not put this in Martin Scorsese's kind of B slot films.
Okay.
I went into it thinking that. I thought that's what we were going to get.
Sure.
And to be honest with you, as the movie went along and after watching it again, I put this up there with my favorite Marty, honestly.
Wow.
I'm shocked to say it, shocked to see it. And you are.
We need to watch Goodfellas again.
Well, listen, no. Just because I put him in the A slot, Goodfellas is
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying this
in the A tier.
Yeah, in the A tier.
Yeah,
I'm not saying the number one best film.
Okay.
But if there's 5 movies that I consider in Marty's A tier,
Yes.
then put that. You know,
Yeah.
even Irishman I'll put in B. That's fine.
Okay, fair.
But as
I
far
like that.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm sure you would say like a Raging Bull goes into A.
Absolutely.
And then that's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
I thought, and just it being him still going. I mean, I think Marty's is in like his late 40s or early 50s when directing this. Like we see him as a young director. If it's a Marty picture in the 80s,
Yep.
it's really not the case.
No,
Like, you know what I mean?
yeah.
The dude has some experience behind him in directing. What I would say when you saying it doesn't go, maybe you want to, it doesn't go full Marty. There's things maybe missing from it, or things that we're so used to Marty, or how he can be on film post Goodfellas. There is a more simplicity to it, but some of those shots are great.
Yeah.
There's things in here where it's like, this is Martin Scorsese.
Sure.
You know, this is a good movie in the 80s, which we are lackluster on the 80s.
Absolutely.
That's kind of where I sit with that.
Yeah. I think, my question is more so apples to apples. Which presentation of billiards? Like, we're talking about these both about pool. Which is better? Because, you know, I think Marty has a lot more slick editing, but sometimes it's just about the wide shot of 2 guys playing the pool and letting them act it out, you know? And honestly, besides the critique of it, which did you prefer as far as it being, you know, more enjoyable?
As far as as which movie did I like more?
No, the pool itself, the billiards itself.
Honestly, oh man, that's a really tough question for me.
I think it's Color of Money for me. Just because it's more digestible, it's more slick.
The thing that gets me is that is the first 40 minutes, though, just like you said, in The Hustler, where it's him and Fats Eddie playing for like over 24 hours or over 20 hours.
Yep.
You are watching pool and getting lessons from like some guys that knew how to play.
Right, like that really knew how to play.
Right. So that simplicity of The Hustler boils down to the essence of like learning. You're watching pool. You're watching billiards.
Sure.
There's a lot more flash and Color of Money, which maybe takes away from it. It make me, cinematic wise, makes it a better film potentially. But man, that's why do you say Color of Money? Is it because
really it boils down to I love the tracking shots of the balls when we get real close on the breaks and we follow the balls into the hole. It's simple, but I feel like that. It sells the impact of how strong these guys are breaking the initial,
you're getting a close up on the technique instead of the old school wide shot in 61.
Where certainly good for performances. This, I feel like we hone in on the sport again. You know, I mean, I feel like this is more about billiards than in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So where Hustler's more about kind of gambling and crime.
That's true too. There is that element. Yep.
So, and those tracking shots I think are incredibly fun. The editing, the breaks, it's so thunderous and has impact, and I feel like Marty's filmmaking is really on great display there. My absolute favorite shot, though, is a oneer scene where Eddie runs out of the bar and Cruz is chasing after him. Unknown to us, the camera is mounted to Eddie's Cadillac and shifts from the shot of the bar into the car and then pulls away with the car. Cruz running after him. If you decide to watch this movie, folks, just keep an eye out for that one because it's a simple oneer. It's not anything even technically brilliant. It's clearly just they put that camera on the front of the Cadillac, but it just quality shot there.
I agree with that. That's funny. Maybe just even you saying that, I'm just like, oh, yeah. Not noticeably thinking about it while watching. Where I was most kind of saying, like, oh, this is a really good movie. I love this. It's really when there's probably maybe 3 times, 2 specifically and 1 especially towards the end at the competition. There is a dance going on with one camera and then whoever it is playing pool, whether it be Newman going. So, you hit one, you get one in the pocket and you keep going.
Yep.
And one specifically towards the end, it is an absolute dance of Newman and the cameraman as Newman's making his shots.
Yes.
And the 2 of them working around the table together.
Yep.
Really beautiful stuff.
Yep.
Really good. Could have watched that for an hour, honestly.
Yeah, and that's where I think this wins out because it captures the electricity of like, oh, he's popping off. He's getting everything in. You know? And I feel like that's where the more modern spin is
I agree
better
with that.
for the
I agree
billiards
with
to
that.
it. So, but yeah, I think really it comes down to how you see the tension towards the end. Like I said, no spoilers with the big movements of the story, but the end is more of an official tournament. I feel this plays into everything that we've been saying so far. Billiards being more the focus, sport more filling into its sports drama genre pairing, and overall that big tournament being a display of a lot of skill sets. No less just Vincent and Fast Eddie. I think the stakes are there. This official spin to it is where I feel like I don't want to say it fizzled for me. Because that's not, it was still just as gripping.
Right.
I kind of wanted, again, more of an evil spin. I wanted, maybe even if it would have been campy, some sort of mishap to happen. John Turturro is a great example of a character that is set up maybe to, be like
like
a worm-tonguey, like he's a bastard.
Could have brought George C. Scott back. he was still alive.
Right.
But I do like that. You want it more of an adversary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where I feel like in an equally good way, just maybe not for my taste personally, this is a kind of a celebration, a triumph for Fast Eddie. And I feel like as a sequel, that checks a box in what I'm suggesting wouldn't check it.
Okay.
So my best recommendation here is to see this as that direct sequel, for instance, for that exact reason, that it's about continuing Eddie's story in a meaningful way rather than revisiting an era of the game that was a little rougher around the edges, but truly is not the game anymore. It's telling his story as evolving with the character and telling the story of the evolving game of billiards. We're going to go ahead and give The Color of Money a 73.
Wow. Oh, whoa.
You thought...
Wow. Okay, we're really falling down here. 73%.
It's a good movie.
No, absolutely. 73 is a good movie.
This is Tom Cruise. He does karate one more time.
So is it okay if I could just have my note?
You got it.
I have it
Go
written down
for
in
it.
sentences, so that's how my mind
Sure.
goes. One thing I need to point out.
Yeah.
I doubt that this is planned, but it's very, very funny.
Mm-hmm.
Your shirt that you were wearing across the table. Did you do that purposely?
No.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm wearing a Doom shirt. And
The video game Doom.
Yeah, the video game Doom. And also where I believe the original guys got
So there's a shot where Tom Cruise has his billiards case or
Yeah.
his pool cue case, and somebody goes, "What do you got in there?" And Tom Cruise opens it up and goes, "Doom." And apparently, the video game Doom got the name from that scene.
Yeah, like John Carmack and whatnot.
Right. Because the guy wanted to see the case of the video game and say, "What's in there?" Doom.
Yeah.
Very funny. Not planned.
No, I swear to God, not
Wow.
planned.
Okay, very good.
This was more of a lazy shirt to throw on to get my ass over here.
Okay, so this is kind of what I have, and honestly, it's funny that you ended The Hustler with the question of what do you actually think of today's audiences going back and watching it.
Sure.
And this maybe ties into that a little bit. 'Cause
Yeah.
what I have here is basically The Hustler is like owning a 1960s Buick. Being in it is an incredible step back in time. It feels simple, beautiful. It feels like there's a soul to the car. You might even find yourself saying, why don't they make them like this anymore? But after actually having it as a daily driver, it tends to show its problems and its age. The nostalgia wears off and the car starts to feel burdensome. 15 minutes into The Color of Money, and you realize you stepped out of the 1960s Buick and got into a modern, finely tuned, reliable sports car. And for 2 hours straight, you're taken for a high-speed ride that doesn't ever stop or disappoint.
It's true.
The movie doesn't make your head spin or anything crazy. It doesn't stress you out like watching Henry Hill on a coked-out bender running errands as helicopters follow him in Goodfellas.
Right.
I said, but instead, Martin Scorsese, along with an outstanding Paul Newman, they take you for a ride of feeling engaged, you are impressed, and loving every minute of the ride.
Yeah.
This movie, it's not perfect, and especially after watching it 2.5 times, basically. There's holes in it a bit, and actually there's an aspect towards the end which I wish was kind of bled out a little bit more for the audience to see and kind of get a better idea of what was actually going on in the background of something. And I can't really talk about it more than that without getting into spoilers. But, it can have its flaws. Still, this movie shocked me with how good it is. It was I couldn't believe how acceptable I found Tom Cruise in the role. As Tom Cruise as he is.
Right.
He is. I think something about him seeing his origins. This is his next film after Top Gun. Very young brat, kind of. But to see him in this role and not have that, he doesn't feel like he has that Tom Cruise stench on him. He doesn't have the baggage of Tom Cruise.
Sure.
We're
jumping on Oprah's couch.
We are decades away of Oprah's couch. Everything about this worked. I truly love this movie, even though it does have some flaws. This gets 2 shoes, 2 laces.
Whoa!
This is it. I mean, this is laced up.
This is laced up. High boot.
That is, there's not that many Tommy 2 shoes with the 2 shoes and the 2 laces. This gets it.
I love that. And I'm so glad. I honestly was questioning which one was the best sports movie for you.
And this one. I think this is absolutely my favorite sports movie.
Yeah.
Not that I'm the biggest connoisseur of sports movies, but I watched my fair share of.
I'd like us calling heads or tails on this, though, because who the hell is giving a damn about all these sports movies? We did the baseball episode, this now.
People didn't care about the baseball. I mean, we haven't, there's a lot of sports stuff we haven't touched. I mean, plenty of football stuff like radio and stuff, which I do love, and Rudy, which we both don't like. But this is my favorite sports movie. I absolutely love it. After this, now is Major League.
What a list. What a list.
You asked me if I'm mad about the 86 on The Hustler. Absolutely not. The 73 on The Color of Money.
Mad.
Well,
right in.
No, I don't know. There's nothing else I can say. I freaking love this movie.
That's great.
2 shoes, 2 laces all the way. I'm sending it. This movie runs.
I feel like if it's anything that's keeping out of maybe we'll call it high 70s, it all comes down to Cruise. But
that's fine.
I like what you're saying though, that it's pre-Cruise.
It is, and it feels pre-Cruise.
Yeah. If I had more tolerance, maybe I'd dive more into those early ones. There's actually a Ridley Scott movie we've been dying to check out. Producer Sean as well has been dying to check out. Is Legend, Ridley Scott's 3rd film, and it's one of Tom Cruise's earliest, if not, I think, like 1 or 2, like his 2nd film. So
we should probably check some of that stuff out. Okay. That's a long. It's a long 4 movies this episode. Long episode.
That's why we did 4. That's why we cut Miller's Girl.
Excellent, Vin. I'm so glad we watched those 2 together.
Yeah. And really,
I thought you would have. I thought you knew how much I love Color of Money.
I did. I guess it really it's Tom Cruise. It's a smoke screen.
Well, we both agree on the Newman part. Then I mean, boy,
yeah. And also, quick shout out to I forget her name.
She's very good. Mary Elizabeth Master something.
Yeah,
playing
it's tough. Yeah, she's going to be in Scarface as well. She plays the sister to Al Pacino.
Okay,
so we'll
beautiful too. Boy,
yeah.
they really
Right.
Okay.
Oh, what a great scene when he basically lays down the law.
You kind of think of which way he's going to take it.
Yeah.
And then he takes it, and it's just like, what a pro.
Yeah, exactly.
What a pro.
Newman wins. This is the episode that Newman wins.
Which is just like, that has been known for the past 70 years.
We're late.
Happy to be here, though. Happy to be on the Paul Newman train.
Right. Love that salad dressing.
Okay, so The Color of Money, 73%, and it gets 2 shoes, 2 laces.
Laced up.
Not easy to get.
Well deserved.
Not easy to get.
Right, yeah.
Okay, let's just keep it moving then, folks. We got to. Oh God, what a turn we're taking.
All right. Well, I'll be quicker with these.
Take as long as you need for our next man. We're stepping back into 1981, folks. This is our Brian De Palma study because last week Vin did this 4 movies right in a row, 1 year after another.
Yes.
Last week we covered Dress to Kill, and this week we are covering John Travolta in Blowout. Vince, set it up a little bit for us, and how did you like this Brian De Palma film?
1 year after Dressed to Kill, and he's already back with one of the biggest stars at the time, John Travolta. Of course, Travolta's coming off of Saturday Night Fever and Grease. So this is hard to say into like the marketing of these stars back in the day, but I feel like this is maybe a break into more serious, this being a thriller, suspense type of thing. And originally I thought this was going to be a totally different type of movie, both by like the poster of it, and I thought it was even going to be the twist, like halfway watching into the film, that it's more about Travolta, kind of like an anger thriller, a rage thriller. Not the case at all. And after watching this, I feel like I finally get the building title of De Palma being this master macabre. He really is trying to make these suspense thrillers, and I think in the early 80s, he's the one to probably just do it the best, basically. So.
And I will say, like, do more research on this film because it was such a head turner. Dressed to Kill.
Yep.
Just reading the basic synopsis plot to this movie, I really like it. I like the setup to how we get going. It's a kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, and I think De Palma, just writing wise, is playing into his skill set a little bit more instead of writing about, whatever Dressed to Kill is about. It's about like filmmaking, and that plays into the thriller itself of it. So Blowout is still very much into this neo-noir thriller where the suspense comes from pulp-style killings. This is very much... you could describe it as kind of a pulp movie for how blown out the style is. And unlike our last film, the story, centers on something actually pretty good. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, Just to Kill really wasn't doing it for either of us. So even after speaking on the episode, I was like, I was a little bit more positive on this, getting into this film this week, and then I just thought of the experience that Dressed to Kill was. I was like, no, that's not. Thank God that got the score.
I did get nervous when I saw basically we had the same freaking cast.
Yeah, basically.
I was like, what are we doing here? It's almost like, hey, we just wrapped, guys.
Can I get you for another?
Yeah, can I just walk across the parking lot? We're already setting up on the other film here.
Yeah, exactly. Travolta plays an audio engineer named Jack, who does the sound effects or Foley on B horror movies in Philadelphia. One night while recording ambience in a park, he is witness to a suspicious car crash that the tire blowing out sends the vehicle diving into a lake nearby. Jack acts right away to save Nancy Allen from the sinking car, a repeat casting from Dressed to Kill. But despite his heroics, there seems to be a cover-up happening around the accident. Jack then spirals down a rabbit hole of conspiracy and stitching together the truth the only way he knows how, through the audio equipment that captured the blowout in the first place. I would say my praise here, it makes perfect sense why Tarantino likes this after watching this. Also, I'll clarify on Tarantino's exact quote. He calls it a desert island film and in his top 3 of all time. So I think maybe that even ranks higher than best of the 80s, So,
I don't understand.
Yeah,
Some of his picks are just out of.
Yeah, I know. He really is. The whole technical angle here around sound and film equipment makes perfect sense. Why Tarantino has this hard-on for it. His praise for De Palma clearly shows that this is a movie for anyone familiar with movie making, especially pre-digital. If you have a fascination in that. And the kind of the technical side of it, I feel like this is a good recommendation as well. I mean this in a good way, too. The technology of recording equipment informs and drives the mystery forward. Many times, Travolta problem solves in the story, in the mystery of this, through his film production know-how. And not once does he act outside of this character. This is a much better script and story for this reason, because I feel like De Palma is just writing from the chest. He's writing about what he knows about.
Right, yeah.
And using that to craft a mystery that progresses realistically with the characters. In past reviews, I've always praised when characters operate within the role they were written. Jurassic Park always comes to mind as the kind of the principal example. They are scientists. They are not superheroes, unlike Jurassic World and the spin-offs. But I think this hits exactly the same sweet spot. Travolta's character Jack is an audio technician.
Right.
Not once does he do anything other than audio technician work. So I think that's where this really works and gives a praise and also kind of solves the mystery of what Tarantino is coming off of or speaking out of his ass on. On the other hand, I can safely say between this film and last film, I hate Nancy Allen's acting. In Dressed to Kill, I thought it might just be the odd tone of the film that it took, but now I know it's her. She is really just the worst. Acting almost like a mental child here, despite her character filling a similar role as this streetwise prostitute.
She plays another prostitute?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Well, and maybe not like a prostitute, more like a call girl, because it's
Okay.
More of a luxury angle, if you will, because the
High-class hooker.
there you go.
Okay.
There you go. I just feel like, despite the streetwise spin, she adds nothing to the story, and the logic she has. It's like, have you lived in this city? Have you lived in 81 Philadelphia? I mean, this is unreal. Really, worst of all, the logic of this character is just so backwards and so frustrating. On the back of the same note of praise that I have for De Palma writing a sharper script about what he knows about, in just the same way this female character then falls short, which is almost identical.
It's almost identical.
Yeah.
You could almost say that the best part about Dressed to Kill was the kid.
Yeah,
Peter, or whatever his name was.
Sure, yeah.
I'm almost wondering, just like watching this, listening to this, I wonder if De Palma made this movie 10 years later, used the same actor as the kid, and had him in John Travolta's thing.
Right.
Because in the first one, he's all about audio. He's all about video.
Yes.
Using his video camera that he
right.
made. Now, you know what I mean? I can see him as a sound technician.
Yeah.
But very similar characters of, you have this guy focusing on sound, good at what he does. Before you had Kid, focused on his audio equipment.
Both kind of rising to heroics.
Right.
Absolutely. I think that's a great
And
read.
apparently Nancy Allen playing an idiot.
Oh, man. All I'm going to say, folks, or the last note, and I already said a lot about Nancy Allen, is I don't want to dig up one of my more controversial reviews from earlier in the podcast, but her inclusion in RoboCop makes perfect sense to me now.
Okay.
And she's in all the RoboCops. So, a real surprise here is John Lithgow.
Yeah. Good or bad?
Amazing. Amazing.
Why are you surprised at that?
I don't know anything beside him singing Inchworm. You know what I mean?
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I had a CD of him singing Inchworm. That kid, and it's just like, who is this guy? And then I got older and I was like, oh, he's actually a great actor. So
You're right. He's with some things.
yeah, he played the dad or the grandpa in Interstellar, and then
that's right.
But you go through his IMDb and it's just like, oh, this guy's in a ton.
Yes, definitely
big
a working man's actor for sure. And
I'm assuming playing the protagonist here or playing the bad guy.
No. He's the assassin. He's the antagonist, but the antagonist really more so is like this conspiracy that's unfolding.
Okay, all right.
It's Jack is kind of man versus this cover-up, really.
Yeah, Jack being John Travolta. Yeah.
Yes. Lithgow is just a super cool assassin. It's just sugar on top, basically.
Gotcha.
He's the cherry on top of this film. It's a big surprise because both the casting and the quality of his performance. Lithgow at the time in '81, I don't think is really anyone super notable, but also it's one of those peculiar castings that just sells an assassin character. Just kind of, you see him and you're like, oh, who's that? And then the action of the role sets in. I really do think he just operates as this perfect tool of the shadow powers, pulling the strings, and quickly he runs out of control of his handlers. I think the best part of this is how his involvement unfolds. It's really unclear who the hell this guy is for a big stretch, and then like dominoes, something he says something in a phone booth, and you're just like, oh my god, it's him. It's great. I would say it comes nowhere close in comparison to the quality of this, but it just to give you a gauge of where this assassin coolness is coming from is Lithgow really conjures what's so amazing in No Country for Old Men in the chilling character of Anton Chigurh.
Wow.
That you just don't know what he's going to do next, and
Okay.
he clearly has plans that are not really revealed to us,
Yeah.
you know?
Honestly, I mean, that really sets an image. I know who we're dealing with now.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. So, and especially how he kind of turns on his handlers as well.
To bring in like a 90s movie or late 80s movie, I forget when, what about John Malkovich in that Clint Eastwood film where he plays a psychopath a little bit?
Yeah. And you know, an interesting point because both kind of share some political vibes with that.
Right, yeah.
Why can't I think of that?
In the Line of Fire.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Folks, sometimes we take a moment to look that up. That was a real moment that Tom and I both had the light bulb. I would say the takeaway for the study so far is just more split screen work for De Palma. He just can't get enough of it. And if I'm being honest here, I like respecting classics. I like, not shaking the boat too much on, a movie that probably no one cares about in a long time. I just feel like praising him using split screen just feels like a no duh. It's just like, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm just kind of being real there. I feel like the praise I have for his use of split screen is that he's always double loading story elements. We're either getting news footage, building the world, and then seeing a character, or even sometimes talking is happening simultaneously. A good example of this is when Travolta is recording audio. We get that split screen down the middle of what he's recording up close and personal. So I think the praise I have there is this double dose story telling that is played out simultaneously on screen. But I got to be honest, I'm not overly enthusiastic about him just using split screen in general.
Yeah. You're not
especially
impressed by
watching in modern day, I don't feel impressed by it.
Right, yeah.
So, one side of this, and I think is very much a precursor to what we're going to be getting into, and hopefully for the last movie, Body Double, as well, is just really good music here. It's not quite at the level of Scarface just yet, but it was really whetting my appetite for this 80s crime feel, and definitely even some Michael Mann vibes as well, as far as early in his career. So did this live up to the hype? I'm not sure. I think overall, no, but I feel like it could hit for anyone that has a passing interest in making movies and having a thriller around that. Having that twisted into a semi-political suspense thriller made for a good watch. But once again, like I said with Dressed to Kill, I don't think these hold a candle to thrillers, especially among a genre that is peppered with must-watches.
Yeah.
I feel like the bar for a really good suspense thriller is very high. And watching in modern day, you have a plethora of options. This one being decent, but not making the cut in a significant way. Folks, get ready for next week, though, because we are watching Scarface, but looking to be the highlight of the study.
Yeah. Such a big film compared to these two as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
These two films are very contained. Dressed to Kill and this Blowout.
Yeah.
Boy, talk about
a switch.
Yeah. In money, production, everything.
Absolutely. And really, I encourage, spoiler alert, it's a good movie.
Right.
So I'm going to be positive on Scarface, and it is rated on the site already, but give it a watch whether you have or you haven't, because like I said, it's looking to be the peak of the De Palma study, for better or worse. We're going to go ahead and give Blowout a 64.
Okay, 64. What do we give Dressed to Kill?
I think 46. I think it was in the 40s, if I'm correct.
Yeah, 46, exactly right, which I totally agree with. Okay, so he's stepping up his game a little bit with the 64. Two questions, really. One thing we didn't talk about last week was the cop in Dressed to Kill, played by Dennis Franz, was the most outrageous detective/cop ever.
Right.
I mean, the lines out of his face
So
had
campy.
me laughing.
Yeah,
absolutely laughing. Again, the actor is Dennis Franz. He's in this movie.
Yep.
As ridiculous, or just playing a character.
Maybe not ridiculous, because he seemed like a criminal as a cop in the last one. Now he's just a criminal. So,
Okay,
maybe
gotcha.
he shuffled around. And in a lot of ways, I feel like this film just is everything in Dressed to Kill working for itself.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's working right now. Not that it makes it amazing, but at least it's better functioning.
Okay.
So.
And then last question, of course, is this a good Philly film?
No.
Does it show the city well? Do you feel like you're in Philadelphia?
No, it's a
Does it-
Philly hit piece, especially the political angles.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, we'll save that. That's a compilation for the site.
Oh, that's going to be a big one. Yeah. And a mega multi-part specials, too. Okay, Vince, so 64% for Blowout. Stay tuned, like you said, folks, for next week when we cover Scarface, which we're expecting good things there. Okay, folks, so before we move on to our last film, Origin, just want to remind people that we are totally producer-supported, the Daily Ratings is. So what that means is when you financially support the Daily Ratings, you become a producer, a legit producer of the Daily Ratings. Just like in Hollywood, when you financially support a project, you become a producer of that thing. So how you become a producer is you go to thedailyratings.com, you head over to the donations tab, and like I said, you donate whatever amount that you want. We have some set donations, whether you buy Vin a movie ticket or become a Godfather donation, like fun sets of donations. But also we have the value for value donation. That is whatever amount you want to send in. It's not a set number. So whether it's $4, whether it's $40, or $400, you can go ahead and send that in. If you want to set up a monthly or a yearly, you can do that too. Again, it's as little or as small as you want. The idea behind the value for value donation is we're going off the value for value model. Are you enjoying the podcast every week? Are you signed up to the newsletter that comes out every Tuesday morning or Monday night? Are you into movies and that's why you're here? Are you listening to the episodes in full? Do you just care about a movie here or there and you check in with us and you hang out for a little bit, listen to the movie and that's it? Do you just enjoy hanging out with us for a week? Do we make you laugh, cry, whatever?
Cry, yeah, plenty of tears. For
Yeah,
Color of Money getting
right.
73.
But the idea is that is value in your pocket. We ask, can you give us value back in our pocket? And that's why it's called the value for value model. I was listening to, there's a very famous movie podcast.
Okay.
I won't mention the name. I do listen to it sometimes. It can be good.
Oh, okay.
They operate off of like a tier structure. So they do, our donation stuff just runs off of PayPal. You just send money our way, that's it. We don't deal with Patreon. Because Patreon is a tier structure where if you give us a little bit, we give you a little extra content. You give us this much and you give us this much content. And this podcast kept on talking about, like, if you're in the highest tier, all the benefits that you get. And it's like, they actually, it's way worked into the show. And it's so much money to be in that upper tier, to
Really?
be more a part of the show. That's not cool. Like, the way this works is, $5 might be a lot of money to you this week.
Sure,
Or maybe it's
yeah.
just like you don't have that much money to give, especially for a podcast.
Right.
Why would, what are you going to give $500 to get some extra content and to be involved?
Right.
It's
Be
not
on a
that at
Discord
all.
server
Right.
or something like that.
Yeah,
It's flexible. It's making sure that however you are appreciating our product, you can show that whatever works for you.
Exactly.
Whatever's appropriate as well.
And that's why it's whatever amount of value you want to send our way. And so Vin and I are providing the value here. And technically, it's all free. It's all here for you. But if you could throw us back some value, we definitely appreciate it. When you do donate, though, when you send money our way, the cool thing is you can send in a donation note, whether it's through a little PayPal box or you can email us at tom.vin@thedailyratings.com. You email a donation note in, and it could be questions, it could be comments, it could be critiques. And because if you're going to financially support the show, be a producer of the Daily Ratings, that matters to us. And in this segment right here, this is the producer segment. We're going to read that note, whether it be questions, comments, critiques, spark conversation a little bit. Ask us anything. That can kind of be that segment,
Sure.
That's kind of how we're doing it here. It's, again, no tier structures, no paywalls, and certainly no advertising, no useless ads on the site you're going to get from us. That's kind of how we're structuring ourselves. A little bit different from some of the other guys. We didn't invent the value for value model for sure, but I think and hope to see a lot more people doing this because, man, so did that other movie one. I just couldn't believe not
right.
everyone has $500 to be more involved with a podcast, and they actually give great access, and it's like they become part of polls and stuff like that. And it's just like, we don't need that. It's just, Matt D's been donating little amounts here or there. He had a great idea, and we just took it and ran with it.
Absolutely.
We're not going to make
Absolutely.
people just donate all this crazy. So anyway, it's a value for value model. It's thedailyratings.com and head to the donations tab. All right, that's enough with all that. Vin, let's keep going to our newly released film.
Yes.
As we're in January and February, a little tough, but new flicks do come out, and this is getting some buzz, especially for acting performances.
Yes.
So let's get into it. This is called Origin. I don't think it's all that well known as far as like a wide release film is concerned. So why don't you set it up for it a little bit?
Sure.
Who directs it? What's it about? And how'd you like Origin?
Well, I would say my interest here was primarily for John Bernthal, acting-wise. He's just kind of one of those actors, almost like earlier in the podcast where I was not like fixated on Adam Driver, but I wanted to give him more of shots and watch more movies with him. Bernthal is kind of falling into that for me. He's not in this that much, so it's kind of
the trailer makes it seem like he's in
right.
Quite a bit.
He's absolutely big supporting role. Not the case. On the bad end of this, I really wasn't thrilled by our director Ava DuVernay. Her last feature being 2018's blunder, A Wrinkle in Time. But it's January, so we got to watch something. And I feel like there are a lot of strengths to this. Luckily, it's a very strong story, and while I felt the filmmaking itself was rather plain, it has a ambitious message to convey, and if anything, around that story itself, I think that's where I kind of have almost a secondary recommendation. Origin is a biopic equally about the author and the subject of her book. This is based off of the real story of the author writing her bestseller, and in so many ways feels like a nonfiction American fiction. We covered American fiction a couple episodes ago. Honestly, I had to resist in writing the review of over-comparing it to American fiction.
Really?
Because even how structure-wise, how drama, tragedy is layered, and then project is almost backloaded to it, the writing project. It feels very close to American fiction.
Wow.
Both good and can share some of that praise of switching things up of how this happens as a drama. In this movie, we follow Pulitzer Prize writer Isabel Wilkerson, played by Anjanui Ellis, who recently... Totally the first time I did that. Who recently came off the Color Purple remake and who we saw on the podcast with the must-watch If Beale Street Could Talk. Definitely excited to see her in this role. I think it was a good performance. Again, all of my critique is more so towards the filmmaking itself. And I don't want to beat up on DuVernay too much, but that's really, just to lay it down, that's where my gripes are.
Okay.
We center on a transformative time in her life as several tragedies push her deeper into her work and overcome a writer's block. Once again, American fiction. The film examines multiple historic scenarios around systemic racism and prejudice as she begins to untangle a mess that seemingly has no answers. The interest is spawned by the 2012 case around Trayvon Martin's death and sparks the inspiration to tackle a much broader story, a much broader topic than simply just racism. I want to praise the wide breadth of the story here. This is chasing after something far beyond than what I just expected it to be. I would go so far even to say that after watching this, I have a passing interest in reading the book itself as well.
Okay, well,
because I feel like it has such an interesting angle. I just really feel like the movie of it, the book becoming a movie, but also being a biopic, it just kind of loses what is so great about this premise. So that's where I kind of say almost a side recommendation. I have a passing interest in the book. This movie, not so much, though. In a very positive way, this is after injustice itself and how it often rots the core of many cultures and time periods in human history. In actuality, the topic of Wilkerson's book is not about skin color at all. It's really more about a caste system and how hierarchy is often manufactured by our fellow man. This is also where the real book gets its name, Caste, the origin of our discontent. And I feel like this broader stroke is so interesting, and I wanted it to play into how a lot of good films about a research or a topic have natural beats of tension in overcoming this.
Okay.
And I feel like this captures some of this, but my criticism really, it falls on the filmmaking here, slipping into a type of trauma competition between characters and stories and ethnicities in the film. It gets lost in a one-upsmanship of whose culture has the most grievances, and I feel like that's probably the worst thing this could have done.
Yeah. Do you think it like take a step back and just cast a wider net on the book itself to cover more, like more
I don't know.
angles or more?
I think I'm coming from the angle that don't make it a movie at all. I feel like this. I feel like the exact line this gets lost in is in balancing the drama of Wilkerson's real life and then this topic. And if anything, to my point about American Fiction, we get all the time in the drama of the character. We don't really ever read the book of the trash that he pumps out, you know?
Very true, yeah.
It
we get one
chooses a
quick
side.
scene,
Yeah.
and I saw this past weekend, by the way.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Quick thoughts?
I liked it.
Okay.
I'm afraid that I went in overhyped.
Oh, okay.
So I was expecting it to be quicker and even wittier. And it was...
I kind of get sad.
So it was a little bit slower than I thought.
Yep.
And not only that, you have... I mean, he was nominated for an Oscar, and then, oh man, what's his face was nominated for Best Supporting.
Yeah, his brother, yeah.
I was expecting more out of that performance, too.
Sure,
being nominated.
Yeah.
And so I just think I went in so hyped, really liked it. But to me, it felt like a Venice Film Festival movie or a Sundance Film Festival movie. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It didn't feel like an Oscar movie. It didn't feel big enough for... I liked it.
Sure,
it. We don't have to go on a full tangent
Yeah,
of it.
no.
I think
guess.
Right. I guess I was overhyped about it, and because I was hearing so many good things about it, of course, most of all, your review as well. And then also just knowing that it was a little bit comedic and quick and witty. I love Jeffrey Wright so much when he's with not Paul Thomas Anderson.
Wes Anderson.
Yeah, yes, when he's with Wes Anderson, because he was in 3 films with Wes Anderson, and just the way that quick and witty language, the way that flows.
Absolutely.
And he's playing such a character within American Fiction. He was playing such a normal guy, and I felt like I was visibly watching Jeffrey Wright trying to act like a normal guy.
Oh, interesting.
And so it was tough for me. He was good in it. I didn't feel like he really became the character, in my opinion. It was Jeffrey Wright trying to be a character.
Interesting. Okay.
But enjoyed it. I don't want to say I didn't like it.
Right.
The overall flow, tempo, and dialogue of the film, I just thought was all going to be like amped up a little bit more.
I think that overhype aspect, it's a very realistic thing as well, that anyone kind of comes across when you hear all these nominations.
Exactly.
So.
And I didn't think it was going to be such a real world thing. I thought it was going to be stepped out a little bit. And
but more satire.
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
But good performances. I guess just not quite where I thought it was going to be.
Sure. And the connected tissue in the tangent here, folks, is that again, I feel like not to overcompare these movies, but if it's going to be about the drama, if it's going to be about the interpersonal tragedies, that's enough of a focus here. I feel like this movie splits its time between the very heavy and serious topics of her book that are, again, something that captured my interest even within the story. I feel like what dragged was the how some of that was presented and how the drama of her own life, Wilkerson's own life. Which,
right, yeah.
I'm assuming this is all nonfiction, as far as, the tragedies that happened to her. We don't get closure one way or another.
Yeah, would it be better if we pinpointed just one aspect?
Yeah, exactly.
And
maybe not in like a theatrical release movie. I hate to say it, but I feel like just the topic of her book would be fascinating for a documentary itself. I feel like the theatrical side to this was unneeded.
I was surprised too because I knew it was a smaller film. I was surprised to see it at 2 hours and 21 minutes.
Yeah,
that to me feels long.
And that's where the film hard shifts into the pure academics of what she's studying, the many stories that she's pulling from for this thesis.
Right.
It's not about skin color; it's more about caste and hierarchical structures to society. Again, all really good, but even when we get into that for like the last hour, and definitely dipping over that 2-hour mark, it plays out like a History Channel documentary.
Not good.
Not bad, but not good.
Not good for movie making.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, admittedly, just circling back to some of this, again, trauma competition that happens, admittedly, for the plot, that does add some messiness and some uncertainty into Isabel's thesis. Proving these trends are interconnected is the challenge and the tension. That is the mountain she has to climb for the story. But solving and overcoming them on screen just doesn't feel compelling. The movie of this is a wrong medium, and I think it either unfolds too plain when it comes to personal or too academic, where the last hour is certainly compelling as far as the evidence she's uncovering, but just delivered to us so dry and without drama,
Yeah. And sometimes you get that feeling where you watch a movie and it kind of just feels like this ought to be a play, not a movie.
Sure.
And
Right.
the fact that it's a book, it maybe should stay in the pages.
Right,
Yeah.
in the pages, or a documentary to expound upon, even in episodic content.
Yeah.
Give the stories she uncovers, both personal accounts and historic
a
accounts.
Netflix drama.
Give that its own episode to have it all hit.
It's a funny feeling, isn't it, when you're watching something and having that just kind of initial, just immediate reaction towards like, this doesn't work here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's tough, just speaking honestly about it, because this is a topic, and especially the topic of the book, designed to be kind of open our eyes and broaden our understanding of what maybe causes racism and prejudice. I'm not trying to come down on this. And again, I really do think that there is a good point to make. It's just that the medium is wrong, is what the point I'm trying to make. Back to my opening note, I did find, again, that filmmaking and the editing around the story just very bland. The film juggles a handful of flashbacks to both personal moments in Isabel's life, as well as these historical events uncovered through her research. But the main stretch of her research is just presented generically. It felt like a TV production, even leaning towards kind of like a history documentary, and if anything, I'm saying lean more into it. What is lost is the impact of Isabella's personal life. Even despite her own arc being about making her premise more human, it doesn't play out like that. It's actually kind of ironic that her challenge in this book is making these stories connect to the readers. And I feel like this movie needed to have that challenge to kind of connect the tissue and make it theatrical. In a way, DuVernay could have learned a lot from the 2022 film Till, which intentionally, we are not shown the crime, we are not shown the tragedy, which gives a platform for our lead to have a more emotional performance. Also, shout out to Danielle Deadweiler for the Tom Daly winner that year.
Yep.
The point I'm trying to get across here, though, folks, is that visualizing the dehumanization communicates the ethos of the history, why we care, why it is emotionally devastating, and why it's important for Wilkerson to dive into this as a topic, but it poorly tells the life story in its medium of a film. We're going to go ahead and give Origin a 55.
Okay, 55%.
Yeah.
So, by the way, this was a 2023 release and it just got a wide release.
Oh,
But this
okay.
was a Venice Film Festival.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like maybe it has that.
Has
Sometimes
that
they
vibe.
just feel.
Yeah.
They just have that kind of film festival feel, and almost like that's where they belong.
Right.
You know?
Important in topic, maybe just not, for a movie or a film.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so 55%. I thought that was a great review, Vin. That was a really.
Yeah, a little bit.
I know, difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult because my point is not saying that the
material
Wilkerson point
right.
is not correct. If anything, again, explore that book, Cast, The Origin of Our Discontent. I think it has a very compelling point to make. It's just all in the filmmaking here.
Okay, so
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. One quick note, like watching the trailer, and I think I watched a couple trailers for this, was there something unique about the cinematography? Did they go for a grainier, old school time kind of look or no?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
colors are muted just in the sense that we deal with so much tragedy, and then even when we get into the real heavy academic sides of our book, that's essentially about tragedy as well.
Okay, I think it was just something playing with the trailer then,
Yeah.
basically. Okay, Ben, all right, so 55% for that new release, Origin. All right, looking at the score, what a interesting kind of interesting kind of week.
Right.
Any
Well,
notes on this week? Any notes we're looking forward, Vin, or roll credits here?
Well, next week, in addition to the shout out for Scarface, we are going to be doing Argyle, which is Matthew Vaughn. It looks very loud. It looks very obnoxious. Vaughn is a powerhouse, really more of a producer than a director these days. But if you're interested in watching any Matthew Vaughn films, we'll definitely be kind of commenting on his career as a whole. And specifically, we're going to be covering Layer Cake, which is kind of a...
got the
only
DC fever. Got the DC fever.
the only man to ever hoop and holler for Layer Cake.
And I'm just saying that's next week as well.
Yeah, that's next week.
So just if people aren't familiar with Layer Cake, if you are still confused, how did Daniel Craig come to be Bond?
Yeah.
Where did he even come from? Why did they choose him for Bond?
Yeah.
Watch Layer Cake.
Right.
It's all there.
Yep, and it played into some last-minute switches in the marketing as well. It's huge. So excited to cover that, and of course, February we're covering our dancing man, Fred Astaire. He's on the scene. We're winding down, so
Yeah, we are. There's a few films left.
Right. I've watched a lot of Fred Astaire movies, and I got opinions on them. So
Excellent.
Stay tuned.
Vin, thank you so much for watching these films. Thanks for stopping by, folks. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Vin and I were just before we hit play here. We're talking about scheduling out and talking about the first kind of quarter of the year and stuff. We've got some great content, some great episodes, a lot of good stuff planned for you. So Vin, thank you so much for watching, stopping by, folks at home. We'll run it down one more time. We have The Hustler with a must-watch 86%, Blowout with a 64%, The Color of Money with a 73%, and Tommy Two Shoes, Two Laces. And finally, we have Origin with a 55%. Folks, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. Hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or get the word out, tell a friend about us. And just a reminder, the Daily Ratings is completely producer-supported. We want to stay away from advertising, and we don't want to have any paywalls or tier structures or subscriptions. It's all just value for value. So, are you finding value in any of the things we're doing here at the Daily Ratings? Then become a producer and donate whatever amount of value that is. Just go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. And while you're there, be sure to check out the massive amount of films Vince has rated for us all. So thanks so much, everybody. We will see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.